2020-21 ఆర్థిక సర్వేపై కేంద్ర ప్రధాన ఆర్థిక సలహాదారు కేవి సుబ్రమణియన్ మాట్లాడుతున్నారు. ప్రత్యక్ష ప్రసారం ద్వారా చూద్దాం.
As a function of the growth of the country, economic growth, you see a positive relationship. In other words, higher growth leads to higher rating, which is expected. But what I want you to take away here is India actually lying below the line, significantly below this line of fit. And this is being done by looking at peer economies, in other words, countries that are within the same credit rating range, so that we do an apples-to-apples comparison. But India clearly lies below this line, and this is not just now, this has been the case over the last 2 decades. So whether it's 2000, 2005, 2010, 2015, or 2020, India lies secularly below the line. And this is then examined across a variety of indicators that are supposed to impact credit ratings: inflation, general government debt as a percentage of GDP, cyclically adjusted primary balance as a percentage of GDP, current account balance as a percentage of GDP, the political stability, rule of law, control of corruption, investor protection, ease of doing business, short-term external debt, reserve adequacy ratio, and the sovereign default history. Across all these indicators, India comes out as an outlier in a similar manner, which is what leads the survey to ask the question, does India's sovereign credit rating reflect its fundamentals? And using this analysis, the survey answers no. Now, another aspect actually is really important when we talk about sovereign ratings or ratings in general. Rating is nothing but a mapping of the probability of default. In other words, if you are called a AAA, it corresponds to a certain probability of default. If you are called B, there's a certain probability of default. That is all a rating is. Now, when you unpack that, the probability of default is affected by the willingness to repay as well as the ability to repay. The willingness to repay for India is gold standard because India has never ever defaulted on its debt obligations. You know, all of us remember even in 1991 when India faced a balance of payments crisis, we shipped gold to the Bank of England to honor our obligations. That is reflecting India's willingness to repay. The ability to repay is also very, very high. So firstly, if you look at just the sovereign's foreign exchange obligations, and that is what the rating agencies look at, and you exclude the bilateral and the multilateral debt that the credit rating agencies do not consider, that part is very, very minimal. So if you look at India's structure of debt, the part that is in foreign exchange, excluding these, is very, very minimal. So sovereign's foreign exchange obligations are almost non-existent, really minimal. But because India does not have full capital account convertibility, we also need to take into account the private sector debt. Now, when the private sector has to repay its foreign exchange obligation, it has to approach the Reserve Bank, pay rupees, get the equivalent foreign currency, and use that equivalent foreign currency to go and repay their creditor. Therefore, the foreign exchange reserves matter, in looking at this. Now, if you look at short-term debt of the private sector, in other words, what is due in just 1 year, India's reserves are adequate to even withstand a 0.1% probability event, which is 1 in 1,000 times. And when you look at India's total external debt, not just the short term, you look at the entire debt, short term plus long term, public sector plus the private sector, which is the total obligation of the entire economy in foreign exchange terms, that amount is less than the reserves. In other words, our reserves are more than adequate to take care of all our obligations in foreign exchange. Therefore, India effectively resembles a negative debt company whose ability to repay, by definition, is 100%. So on both the willingness to pay and the ability to repay, India should have the highest rating. And this is consistent with a large literature that highlights these kind of aspects in sovereign credit ratings. There's a large literature in finance and financial economics that actually talks about this, that I've had the privilege of reading.